Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the ESL Arena here in Katowice for our 33rd and final game of this ESL 1 Cologne offline qualifier. There is one spot remaining. There is no more lives left for both of these two teams. It is do or die. These teams are familiar with each other. They played each other before, but everything is different now. It's been a while, and of course on a stage like this in a best of one, you can't predict this kind of game. First up, of course, is going to be Cloud9, and there has not been an easy game, win or lose for them, for the entirety of the tournament. We saw them go a cut above, of course, over Tyloo, but their slow and methodical play, although it got them crucial rounds against Envy, didn't allow them to react to the aggression and pace that Envy were bringing. They wanted it more. It was clear to see, and especially to hear by the roars that we heard from the French side. They were down, but they are not out. And of course, their opponents, who last time they faced, it was G2 winning 16-3 way back at MLG Columbus. That was at the major. But the caveat here is that only one of these teams is going to be at the next one. It is all on the line. We saw G2 completely crumble, shatter, and fall apart against Mousesports. It was a 16-1 scoreline. It's the biggest blowout we saw at this tournament. And by the time they started to recover from such a loss to Gambit, it was already too late. It was a 16-10 loss. We did eventually see Scream especially start to make headlines, but it was too little and too late. So now it is the final moment, the final stand for both of these two teams. One will go to the major, one will go home empty-handed. It's time to find out who is going to be our final team to qualify through to Cologne. I'm going to hand it over to the analyst desk one last time. Alex, take it away.
Thanks very much, Mitch. Awesome as always. Yes, he set the scene perfectly. G2 versus Cloud9. And it is kind of crazy that if you rewind the clock, we would never have thought that we would not be seeing both of these teams at the major. Now just one.
I think it's more about G2 just underperforming the last two games, really. It's
Sure.
why we're in this situation.
I completely agree. They started off so strong. They've been amazing the last month, two months, maybe even 3 months, but they crumbled these last two maps. I mean, 16-1 against Mousesports. Don't take anything away from Mousesports. Dennis played good, like one of the best performances of his career, I'm sure. But losing to Gambit in such a way, where really it was only Smiths that was landing shots, is very surprising to me. Scream, I think, was 1 for 7 at one point.
But exactly, well, that's the point, right? I mean, the problem with G2 right now is that they are too reliant on two heavy hitters in Shocks and Scream making numbers. If they're not, they don't really have much to go with, because like it's just all about them creating opportunities, pulling the numbers, and they wouldn't run with that.
And there's rarely an exception to that rule as well. That's what's kind of scary about G2, and it does look like we're already diving into the vetoes before we do get to say too much more. Over to you guys then with this one. Train getting taken away by Cloud9. I mean, let's not forget that that was what we saw G2 floundering on versus Gambit, but it's safe to say the North Americans aren't too keen.
Feel this. I think it's going to go Dust 2 or Cash. I'm just curious if G2 are still a little bit shell-shocked after that performance against Mousesports, or if they're going to say, okay, it was a one-off fluke, we just didn't show up, we didn't play well, we're still solid on this map. I would actually say both teams would be happy with both those maps under normal circumstances, and it looks to be going that way right now.
Yeah, it became kind of a...
Or not.
Yeah, well, it's going to be an update win. It's going to be Cash for sure. I mean,
I think so, yeah.
I don't think it's going to be Overpass.
No.
Neither of these teams really like to play the map, so that's going to be an intriguing one with these two teams.
Okay, decision made then. I mean, that's at least what we're assuming. We've been surprised before. Let's wait for confirmation. Yeah. Okay, so it will be Cash, and G2 get to play that again. We've seen them on it before. C9 as well. We get to see an interesting clash of, well, regions, North America versus Europe. Let's return to our discussion prior to the veto, though. This inconsistency and reliance on two players of G2.
Yeah.
Have they found form prior to this? I know that recently their rise to form has been this, 2G as opposed to G2, two gamers, Shocks and Scream. It's not always been the case, though. I mean, if you look at these names, everyone has had their time in the sunlight, right?
But it just comes off of the playstyle like Shocks wants to have with these teams. It's very free floaty. It's all about individual skill. It's
Free floaty.
Yeah, it's all about it's a nice word, right?
It's lovely.
It?
It sounds delightful.
Tickled you, didn't it?
It's all about individual creating things, and then in their intuition, their ability to react to situations correctly, and just basically hitting shots is what is bringing them the rounds.
And a very different approach for C9. We saw, of course, versus Envy, as Mitch did touch on, that they had this very kind of tactical feel, tactical vibe to their T side, very slow, methodical side.
It's too slow at times. That's my
too
problem.
Slow. Okay, let's expand on that.
Yeah, well, the fact of the matter is that it seems also like they're almost hesitant at times to execute. They have everything ready, the timing would be correct, and then they just wait that extra 5 seconds, and it so appears the CTs are rotating back to optimal positions to counter that attack. Basically.
When you factor in as well, they have players like Stewie2K who are very explosive players by nature. You're almost leashing your own players by playing slowly. You're playing against their strengths. So I completely agree with Natu. I think sometimes they do play too slow, and they struggle against Tyloo for that reason.
Are we not giving mixed messages here? Because often if you talked about C9 in the past, we would say, oh, it's a bit loose play style. There's not too much structure there. Now they have structure, but it's too much structure.
It takes a little bit of time to find the great balance there, right?
Okay.
I mean, you want to be more structured, and you want to have this system going on. It's easier to rely on that than having 2 players go 30 bumps each time. So it takes a bit of time for them to find the right balance, find the right timings, and when they do, they're going to be a hard team to play against because of the amount of raw skill they have in the lineup as well.
Of course, we saw Cloud9 versus Tyloo on this very map, and they managed to read into Tyloo's T side quite consistently. C9 consistently good on their defensive side, and so one of the big questions that we're going to be raising in this match is what they can do on T. They did win the knife, so they have a choice. Intriguing to see where they do choose to take it, right?
It is, but going back to what we said before about them being sometimes too apprehensive and not being decisive enough, that's why they struggle against Tyloo on their T side. It's like in a nutshell, for me anyway. You need the players getting super hype. So much on the line, of course.
I mean, you rarely play just one map that has this much on the line. Let me remind you guys that this is, of course, the only last chance these teams have to get to that $1 million major over in Cologne, where I was about to say hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands will tune in, but also tens of thousands will be present in the arena screaming for them. Predictions quickly before we do jump into our final game of this offline qualifier.
For me, this is one of the hardest games to predict because of how G2 have collapsed this last couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to go with G2, but I'm not sure about it at all.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think you can be, considering how G2 has been playing the past couple of games. They've been horrible. I mean, just awful. But you'd imagine that this would be the last call, the final wake up, and they'll have Shox and Scream come to play. If they do, I think they're going to win it.
If they hadn't played so poor the last 2 days, it would be an easy G2 call. But for the reasons me and Natu have highlighted, we're not entirely sure. G2 though. Yeah,
I mean, if we'd have come fresh off of the Pro League finals in London and had just, said, okay, guys, it's Cloud9 G2 who gets to the major, you wouldn't have blinked before saying the G2 name. However, it isn't that team. It isn't the team that nearly stuck it to Luminosity. Instead, it is a team that has floundered even versus Gambit in their previous matchup, and now they have one last chance. It is Cloud9 versus G2, and just one of these teams will be present at the Lanxess Arena for the ESL 1 Cologne Major. Your casters are going to be Pansy and Blue, and it is about to go down. One last map, and it is Cash.
What a defining moment for both of these teams. Cloud9 up against G2. Blue, this is a match to be remembered here for that final spot in the major. What are your thoughts coming into this?
I feel like it's a very interesting map for it to be played on too, because again, let's go back to the qualifiers for MLG Columbus. If I remember properly, this was the big map that Cloud9 used to get all the way through their group back then and make it in. And as for G2, well, now they've been performing pretty well on it up to this point, but going back to Cloud9, this could end up being the map that dooms them and knocks them out of the major, whereas he got them into it just on the last run.
G2, as highlighted on the desk, have had one of the most shaky roads to this point. You've seen brilliance, you've seen some incredible downturns in performance that you do not expect of this caliber of player. And the two men on your screen there, arguably at the forefront of that. Scream, up, down, left, right, center, but sadly not on target for most of it. This could be a redeeming feature. Most people only remember how you finally get to the major, not the road getting there. So hopefully for them, they end this one on a high note. But for Cloud9, it feels like a steady build. We've seen potential here and there. We've seen moments, again, of consistency of things we've been asking for a while, but also hesitation and downturns in performance on T side specifically that's really made us ask questions. You can see this is a pressure game for both teams. If you're a betting man, Blue, where'd you put your money?
Again, it's going to be such a hard choice to make and to throw it towards one direction. I'm just as hesitant as the analysts were back over there, but In all honesty here, as much as I want to say Cloud9 has what it takes to be able to make it in this one and go through to the major, I still have to say that G2 will take this one, but it's such a hesitant prediction that it could still very easily go the other way. This has got to be a 50-50 match for me.
Yeah, this is one that sometimes goes a little beyond just the usual head-to-head. This is grit, determination, endurance. All of this will be tested in the next couple of minutes once this game goes live, because both teams have shown that they can perform in the right situation, but also have crumbled a little under pressure. So what Cloud9 will turn up, what G2 will turn up. We've already said that on the desk, if this was the G2 from the Pro League finals, no one would blink an eye and say straight going to them, easily does it. But then you look at those last couple of days and there's doubts, there's worries. We're going to find out very, very soon. The team's just taken a couple of seconds to get themselves prepared here, and I can't blame them. This is a game that's going to define their careers in the next couple of months, bearing in mind that major, if you're not in it, you are taking a massive step back. And I think that's just Slemmy stepping away from the PC, admin to there, just hopefully resolving any issues. You don't want to cause or have any doubts in the back of your mind coming into a game of this caliber. You want to be as focused as possible, have nothing else to worry about. So assuming that gets fixed up, we'll be starting up really soon. But another player I have to talk about when we discuss consistency, we've discussed performance peaks, at least throughout this tournament, has actually been RPK. He may not have been at the very tip of what G2 have been able to achieve in previous, but during this event, he's actually been a pillar of consistency.
There's two gamers for me that I want to look at as the players to lean on, and there's one from each side that if we see either of them showing up, it's going to immediately bring the level of play from that team to another, just a complete another level. And that's been Shox, who, to be honest, like I said, haven't really seen much from him, and that's been part of the downfall from G2 in this event, especially in their most recent map. He just completely flatlined. And on the other side of things, it's Shroud, who, while we see him fragging here and there, again, we're still not seeing anything very impressive from him. Skadoodle's having some good games, apologies. Stewie is showing up to almost every single map here and is probably now arguably like the best player on Cloud9 when you go in match for match and you're looking at him just in his pure fragging ability. But where's Shroud, the king of Reddit?
Exactly.
Where are all this plays to get him on there? We haven't been seeing them as of late. So if he shows up here, that could be the thing that pushes Cloud9 over the limit and gives them that spot at the major.
You're absolutely spot on then. Stewie actually, statistically, has had some of the most consistent damage throughout every single game they've played. So exactly that. He needs to find his form here. And I've got to say, I'm there with you on Shox as well, especially on this map. His aggression is something that can work incredibly well for them here. You look at it when he gets the MP9, he pushes up mid, he pushes A main. He's incredibly aggressive on that CT side. So he's going to come in and have to have nerves of steel to apply that sort of pressure here. But just to keep you guys up to date, you may have seen that Cloud9 were having a couple of technical issues, just to make sure these teams aren't rushed or hurried and they're in the perfect place to carry this game forward, just so the results are absolutely spot on. We're going to go to a very short break, so guys, do stay tuned. This will be your chance to let us know who you think is going to be walking away with this victory. It's split down the middle here, I feel. I'm not sure where I'm going. If I listen to my heart or my head, who knows? Guys, do stick around. We'll be back in a very short time. All right, we are back. No more waiting. It's time to get the game started. We've been hyping this up long enough. It's time to finally get to see cash between Cloud9 and G2 Esports. Why don't you take us away into the first round?
Getting into things now. G2 on the T side. Cloud9 starting off on the defense. We'll see what they can do. And it's a good thing for Cloud9 they get to start off here, as it's been the T side where they've been struggling throughout this entire event up to this point. So
This pop flash.
it's going to be moving in. And look at this from Stewie. Picks up only one kill, though. Nothing finds the second. Body responding back with one of his own. Takes down Stewie. However, Nothing is able to escape the fray for now.
Great first bit of impact coming out from Cloud9. They've seen all the information. So now for G2, it's time to reset this idea. Try and utilize the rest of the time. Can they exploit what they've already achieved? And it looks like they want to try and take mid control to try and find a way back in. Can they pull players left, right, and center? Body, checking out if there's a rotate through highway. No one's actually there, and RPK does have the bomb with him. And if they go towards B, they'd find Shroud and they'd find Slemmy. They hit A, you've got Skadoodle and Nothing. Pick your poison at this point. They have very limited utility here. RPK, the only one with a flash. But with Shox edging towards B, it's hard to see what's going on here already. But there you go, Body's starting to take a little bit of a trade up there with Skadoodle. But nothing too much, too much gains. You can see these guys hesitant to overly commit here. They want to boil that time right down.
They're working their way out now, but Nothing also going in to investigate, and there's a nice tap away from Nothing. Finding his second kill of the round here in order to take down Body. G2 slowly being thrashed away, and for Slemmy, easy, we're going to find one as well. Moves in, takes down Shox. RPK is the last man standing, but he'll be standing out in the open for Slemmy to take him down, and Cloud9 will win the pistol.
I absolutely loved their initiative into that round. Just a little pop flash in towards A main, just thrown back from by Car. I think it was almost back by sight. Two players just take the face. They take down enough to get the information and reset G2's initial plans. However, G2 can go right back in on the Tech-9s and P250s. Bit of utility with Shock, so they can happily build towards a plant, ideally out of this one. But in response, you've got 3 SMGs coming up to play. 2 EMPs, one with Shroud, one with Stewie, and Skadoodle on one as well, looking towards that AWP as fast as possible. And it looks like a big play towards the plant here. Straight out of Squeaky, I can imagine. Shock's going to set this one up, probably to truck, probably that smoke. Going to try and cut off people like Stewie's vision, Nothing, Skadoodles. If they can get to that site, those Tech-9s can do a hell of a lot of damage.
Still holding back for now, though. They know there's going to be an explosion play coming out from G2 out of the A-bomb site, so they don't want to be at the head of it as they move in. No, already 2 kills for Cloud9. G2 having trouble forging their way up to the site. Nothing finding a third. And as for Scream, he's already been dinked down to 5 HP, so there's nothing being found here for the guys on G2 Esports. And as Stewie finds Shox hiding behind the forklift, Scream will have nothing left to do here. Peeking his way out, goes for the first tap, but that's it. That's the element of surprise he would have had, and it's been used, it's been wasted. And the touchdown from Slemmy will end the round for Cloud9. A flawless second round as well, with no losses coming in.
Only losing out on 1 player thus far. That was Stewie in the first round as well. So this is an incredible performance so far, very clean, which is exactly how you want to see this begin for them. Being on the CT side, you want to make sure that economy is as robust as possible. So keeping these SMG kills coming in, making sure they're keeping them very clean rounds to begin with is exactly how you want it to start. And G2, well, they've got to respect this now. They have no money to build into this one with, so down to the P250 on Shox and blocks otherwise. So yeah, just expecting, well, at least not expecting, but predicting possible mid-presence. You can see them boosting up Body in case there was a play through mid coming their way. Not the case. So G2 are going to have to work for this one. And already Cloud9 can sit back a little bit more passively and just see what's coming. They don't need to take the initiative as much in this one.
Stewie waiting again for the A main pressure. G2 splitting themselves up, even though this is basically just going to be the trash round now. Not a whole lot of hope for them to impact whatsoever, since it's going to be the very minimal investment for Glocks. A P250 coming out from Shox. And he's going to be the one that moves into position first there. But we can see Stewie actually ends up getting dinked a little bit, down to 59 HP, but shouldn't matter much if he still has support from his teammates when the actual hit comes in.
Yeah, Stewie can play quite a passive angle with that UMP, still just as good, especially against a team with no armor. That'll shred right through it. But G2 posturing towards this A hit, Smith's Body, RPK, and of course Scream and Shox being the main two. Going to be looking for a play out of Squeaky. Ideally to get a plant, you're not going to expect much more. That'd be the best they could walk away with here.
And RPK, again, looking for the own initiative that G2 can try to get here. Still being played so cautiously despite the fact that there's little chance they actually have to impact on this round. But the first frag's going to come in from Nothing. Stewie finding a second there. He will be overwhelmed before he can grab some more as Shox takes him down. So the big thing to get away with on this round is going to be the plant, and they've succeeded in doing that. Despite this, though, Skadoodle moving in. He's already found 2 frags on this one, and Shox back in quad, tries to hold, finds one on a Nothing, but now they know exactly where he's at, where he's hiding at. And as he tries to perch back into the corner here, the re-peek out from the corner will allow Skadoodle to take him down. Cloud9 start 3-0 as we get ourselves towards the first gun round.
This is where it gets interesting, isn't it? Those first three, well constructed, well formed by Cloud9. The most they lost was actually in that round, being 2 players. So nothing, and Stewie can rebuy pretty comfortably. They've been holding A pretty well, and Skadoodle's had a very good start. So already on 7.8k, so an easy investment towards that AWP if he fancies it. But let's see what they go for here. There's a UMP sticking around with Shroud, so that could be another factor coming out from this. And no questions about it. G2 going up on the buy now. And to be fair, when Existence was in this lineup, they were starting to build some beautiful tactics around this map. That B-take became prolific, almost well known. An incredible feat that they used to be able to pull off. But they don't even have to go back to that. But let's see, because Skadoodle has got himself the AWP, and on the other side we do have Smiths there, who had a bit of a bad game before, but this could be a good start to get himself back in here.
Skadoodle waiting for the mid presence outside of Z. It's the usual setup from Cloud9. It should be noted that Stewie and Nothing are taking a much more passive role to the way that they're trying to hold the A-bomb site instead of actively just waiting in at G2, though, spreading themselves out. And we can see RPK here with a big presence in the Sunroom. This could come out in a big way as Slemmy is going to be pushing into it here. He finds that first kill, but Shroud strikes back.
Yeah, great presence of mind from Slemmy to shoulder peek that. He had the idea that there may be a player towards Sunroom, so making sure they at least trade into it well enough. Now, though, CT side down to 4. They're going to have to split these sites probably, and Scream going to do the smoke towards Connector. Maybe allow himself out to try and find the challenge towards Nothing, but Nothing's still here, but he's got to be careful. Body wasn't far off either, and G2 haven't shown much commitment just yet. Still just testing the waters, trying to play to their default, but Body's got himself through on mid, just by the left side, and actually got himself out now. So, he needs to be cautious. He's the one with the bomb here, and actually going to put it right back over. So, hopefully they can grab that pretty easy. Scream. There we go. Catches that one up.
Bit worried.
And look at the patience here from G2 as well. This is something very different, showing this very kind of composed construction to these rounds, not rushing it. It looks like it's going to build towards an A hit again. They've got Body in mid playing that kind of rotate catch, but they still have to get past Stewie and Nothing. And those two are being very patient here. 20 seconds. Nothing. Playing this well, but he didn't spot the player on highway. That's Body coming into the matter, and a clean pickup. That A site is open for the taking. And well, for Skadoodle and Shroud, they're so far out of this one. It looks all but over.
Yep, it's going to be safe. You can already see it. They're focusing on holding their ground here on the B-bomb site, making sure they don't get pushed from the T-halls. So, nicely done by G2. Very slow, very methodical type of setup to get themselves onto the site, and it works out great. Cloud9, unfortunately, are overwhelmed. Can't win any of those 1v1s. And with that now, as soon as we get into the gun rounds, G2 are on the board.
At this point, who wants it most between these guys? You're seeing G2 playing a... Just one of the games you don't expect from them. Incredibly well composed. These sort of T-sides, you know, it's not the fact that they're not a composed team or they can depend on that. It's the fact that they don't normally have to. They can depend on that raw aim to go in and do the job for them. But this time, you're seeing a team trying to play it as textbook as possible. So there you go, G2 get the first on the board, and it is the gun round, so an important one. And the money's pretty low there for Nothing. He can be dropped out, though. The money outside of that on Cloud9 is pretty robust at this point. But for G2, that's what they need. Now they can get the mollies. Now they can get everything else that they wanted. And hopefully we can see a little bit more from them in that aspect. But oh, wow, straight response back, being Stewie's gone on the AWP as well.
So with the double up setup coming in, this is dangerous though. We didn't really get to mention this too much in the pregame, but go back to the matches from yesterday. This is where Stewie absolutely shut down everybody that tried to push an A main. Was him holding that position with some support from Nothing. He's not going to be as active about it just right now, considering it's still very early on in the match, and he may not want to give its presence away as of yet, but Nothing pushing back in there. They're not going to be able to find anything from G2 hiding inside of A main. Because right now, we still have G2 playing things very passively.
But I like this. They're trying to exert control. They're not letting G2 kind of keep this map a secret for them. The only problem being that Shox could still pounce. Oh, Stewie! Just goes right in on it! That's ridiculous. All right, Shox gets absolutely trashed. Get back. Now Cloud9 have an advantage with zero effort given into that. That was just an intuition play. Sick stuff there. So already 4 players for G2. This is going to be a Scrabble back to control now.
For G2 Esports, all of a sudden losing a player that could have absolutely destroyed the A main hit. Now, where do they take this towards? And it's looking like it's going to be shifting into the B-bomb site. Body working his way in through the vents now, with Scream following very closely behind. RPK and Smiths take control of the T-halls up to the site, but they're going to read this like a book on Cloud9's end. Skadoodle's already moved over from his position in C, and Shroud and Slemmy are up on the site, ready to hold this. The Molly, though, it's going to be hot fire under Slemmy to start this one off. He gets out, but he's still fragging, picks up a first kill. Smith's waiting for the peek from heaven to come out from Skadoodle, but he's not being obliged on it for the time being. Skadoodle able to push forward, and Stewie's now here on the CT cross, taking down RPK. Shroud finding another one from within the site, and the last one left alive is going to be Smiths, but he's not going to go down without a fight just as of yet either. Moving in there, missing that flick. They know where he's hiding out at. Going around the corner here, and he's got to be careful because in a moment, Nothing's going to be rounding him, but it's not even going to need that. Stewie picks up the final kill. Cloud9 strike right back, reset the losing bonus, and lead 4-1.
Stewie with an absolute exceptional round there. You've got to give him credit where it's due. He wasn't given anything in that round, he found it. That pick through door was just ridiculous. That took incredible presence of mind to understand that could be a possibility. And the rest of the play they came out with, again, fought hard for. But let's look at G2. What's left of their money now? A couple of rifles, but a massive deficit in smokes and flashes to build something into this round. So that could indicate maybe a speed up of pace or one big hit. They have 2 smokes to work with, so not really able to construct much out of it. Scream already taken so much. You need to stay away from that door. Cloud9, that's their door right now. You don't go near that. Scream's had to back off. And Smiths only has the scout as well. It's going to be so hard for him to outdo Stewie, who's already made a big impact into this round.
Again,
or, excuse me, into this map.
For Cloud9, though, we won't be seeing them taking up the active role in the A main doorway just as of yet, since it's still earlier on in the round here. And with them being unsure as to what exactly kind of buy G2 are going to bring to the table. Stewie, out back here, just behind the truck angle in the corner, is actually going to miss his first shot. Brings Scream down to 40 HP as they move in, but there we go. Now he's going to start finishing these guys off. Taking down Smiths. One's already been eliminated, and the rest are still on their way to the site too. They've started this what seems to be a bit early, and now they're going to buy more time for Cloud9 to rotate in.
They looked hesitant here, G2, but they're going to go for it now. Scream's got himself towards quad, allowing the bomb now to be planted, or at least considered to be planted by RPK, but in the meantime, Body's been caught up by Stewie, and this guy is not done yet. We were discussing this, Orb. Now you're seeing why. He's going right in on this. The thing is, Shock's in a bit of a tricky spot here, just below boost on those barrels. I don't think Stewie's seen it. Now he has, but it's too little too late. Shock's, he's not going to miss those. And now 3v4. G2 need to hold this one back, but flashes galore with Cloud9. They start to increase their way to the site. Shock's with a stunner towards nothing. And now 1v4. He needs to go above and beyond. He needs the ace, and he's going to go for it as well. 15 bullets, another for Shock's. This could be absolutely sensational. 1v1 against Shroud. The clock is ticking. Shroud's holding it down, and it's going to be Shock's with the ace. Coming in when it matters. Sheer brilliance from that man.
Nicely played by Shocks. That's what we wanted to see from him. That's what we were talking about in the pregame. If he shows up, that spells trouble for Cloud9. And he's going to bring his best day game to this one. Currently leading the fragging power for G2 by a big margin, 7-4. The next highest players are Body and Smiths at 2 frags. Scream still doesn't have a single kill as of yet, but it's not needed with Shocks doing work like that.
You've got to ask the question of Scream. He's normally the player right up there with Shocks. He's the one. This is a great map for Scream normally. Do you know what? For now, sure, you can depend on Shocks for some magic, but eventually there's only so many rabbits you can pull out of that hat until you need to have everyone on the same plateau. So 4-2, G2 bullying their way back into this game, if I'm honest. You know, deserved or not, arguable, but they have a round on the board again. Cloud9 need to find the response here because their money's not looking so great. They don't have as much to play with in the form of smoke, so they can't exert so much control or pacing to it. And of course, when that happens, Stewie as well can't afford that up too.
G2 now, again, back to the very slow style of play. It's working out great for them. Quiet as a mouse, to be completely honest, until they actually go for the execute. And even when they're moving into the site, not really too keen on that sort of aggressive style, leaping through the smokes and take control and try to take down as many of the natural CT defenders as possible. They crawl their way in, try to find that plant first, and let the CTs try to push back against them. But it Shocks again, who has crept up to Big Red, and they don't even realize it. Catches Stewie by surprise. Skadoodle is going to be able to respond with one of his own pickups here, but look at nothing. Trying to lurch his way around. Good news is he's going to go back to check quad, and that's where Shocks is not going to be ready for it. As he moves back in, Scream trying to take down the player, retreating back over there towards Truck, but for the time being, Skadoodle survives. There's Body finding one pickup, though, and now we have Scream on the board with him taking down Shroud.
But RPK's pretty absent from this. Cloud9 don't know that yet, but they're going to find out soon. He's on his way over, and G2 being hesitant, but still getting the kills. First one really to come through for Scream that actually matters. There's the closeout by Body, and these 8 hits are starting to work now.
G2 battling back very quickly. And as for Cloud9, the money, it's not in a good position. Probably going to have to go for the full save right here. Random PG-50 or 2 may show up, but in all honesty, for them already being right around 2K, if they're focusing on the buy in the next round, they cannot afford to go for one right here, and that's exactly what you're going to see. Minimalist to the table, which means G2 now will be able to tie things up at 4 rounds to all.
And Scream knows what's coming, and he could be one of those players that needs is a strong word, but, you know, wants those eco frags, gets himself feeling confident, and players discuss this all the time that certain players do need that to start building up for them. So he's on that Mac 10, so looking to put himself back in a, excuse me, better financial position. And while the Mac 10's not going to have much luck here, as there's such a presence towards B for the CT side of Cloud9, he might have to try and, I guess, go on a long old walk around to get anywhere near close to it.
So for Scream, waiting inside of Squeaky there now. Skadoodle's going to be the only player out on the A-bomb site. And it's going to be a very hard round for Cloud9 to do anything on. Look to get them with as much impact as humanly possible here before G2 eventually knock them out. And with them kind of choosing the wrong site to take the risk stack on, that's where it's going to become a problem for Skadoodle. More on the way now, since G2 still have been playing this very slow style. But as they work their way over to the site, G2 are also crawling in here. And Skadoodle, he's not going to find anything. The others have arrived, but they're far too late to really have any sort of impact here. And G2 are just going to pick them off one by one.
This is what happens when you put a wild animal cornered back to the wall. He fights out of it. Shox then just took down 3 on basically 1 HP. Do you know what? There's one thing I'll say. Sometimes you see players who are hungrier than others, and Shox has turned up today looking incredibly hungry to get to that major. Now, don't get me wrong, he can perform to this level a hell of a lot of the time. But this is a very good game to start having that peak of performance. Let's have a look at the scoreboard. Already on 11-5, considering they've had to fight incredibly hard for these rounds. Bit of a good score already. But, again, Cloud9 not able to get that money building just yet for themselves. So down to the Eagles, the P250s, the 5-7s. They could be going for a bit of a counter boost, bearing in mind Stewie's got himself in a good spot for it. But just going to go for a lot of mid control, trying to exert some dominance here, retain some value to those pistols where they can really operate within their strengths.
Stewie and Slammy holding the angles just outside of Garage here now to see if they can get anybody from G2 pushing out for control. Won't be the case initially since G2 still are holding back inside of that Garage. You've got Body and Smiths. Shock still posturing himself up towards A main. There was Scream further back. It's G2 waiting in the wings now. As Optic have gone for the second eco here. But the peek from Smiths already nets them the first kill. Flashbang's gonna follow up. Smith's trying to fall back, but he can't escape. Stewie walks right in, picks up 2 kills. He'll be shut down by Shox eventually, but you still have Slummy waiting around the corner. RPK covers that one nicely though, with Scream pushing forward. He'll find one of his lucky one-taps. Takes out Skadoodle, not lucky. One of his skillful one-taps. Slip of the word there, my bad.
Nothing though, 5-7. You gotta find something incredible here, Nothing. You could do some more damage. Again, with such a close game. Could do a little bit of work. Scream making it obvious where he is. And you can see Nothing going to take that up, but can't make it work in the end. Scream will shut it down. And there's G2 finding, well, a bomb plant as well. So money going to start looking better. You've got AK actually sitting on Shox there. 5, it was around 6 actually before Smith's reinvested all into the utility. But a good purchase throughout. Not perfect for Cloud9. You can imagine they'd be looking at ideally that double AWP as it had so much presence in those earlier rounds. But back down to just Skadoodle able to operate on that one. And on the other side, Smith's. Looking at Smith's so far, very quiet for him, 3-7. And actually speaking of Smith, breaking the windows towards B to allow a quicker push through towards the B site if they fancy it. But actually that bomb is not over towards B right now, so they're going to try and cause a bit of a distraction, a bit of a play, but that was very close from Skadoodle.
He saw him, he had him through the box, but just not going to be able to make the connection. Meanwhile, Hellfire is raining down on the site, so Skadoodle definitely not going to be safe as of yet. Now for G2 though, they're just going to start the actual take. Stewie spotted it, but he only grabs 1 kill. Leaves himself out for a little bit too long, and it's Shox who has finally decided to show up to the party here, taking down Stewie. Nade's going to come in, does some damage to Shox to respond to that. Nearly not enough here to really cause him to fall back and not peek his head out again. Scream picking up another kill on towards Shroud, and the boost coming in here, if they even need it to be honest. And Smith's still dominating things. Shox tapping away, brings Nothing down to 52 HP. And in all honesty, Cloud9 have suffered too many losses at this point, so they will need to fall back and try to save this. Skadoodle is in a battle that he can't really decide not to take, so he needs to, at the very least, try and shut down Shox here, which he'll succeed in doing. But now he needs to run away.
He needs to be careful where he's running to as well. Doesn't know if there's another by truck, doesn't know where his safety may lay. I think this is about as good as you can get. Scream still on a walkabout as well towards B, but all the other boys from G2 going to evacuate the site. They'll keep their 3 guns. Cloud9 only going to keep 2 here. But Skadoodle still has the AWP, so wondering what buy they'll go for around this. They can get something built up here, Cloud9. 3.7, 4.2. Not ideal, but enough. But I'm wondering when would they consider a timeout here? Because it's been, what, 5 rounds back-to-back now going for G2. The first 3 being the pistol for Cloud9 as well. They haven't been doing too well in these gun rounds. That might need to be a bit of a consideration going forward, that maybe they need to consider going for that timeout just to discuss what's going on here. But it's still early doors, but this is a best of 1 blue, so things could happen pretty quickly here.
And Cloud9 could be knocked into the major pretty quickly as well. Stewie going to be boosted up on Shroud spot. Wait to see if he can find anything with the execute coming in. G2, though, have not been ones to go for the early executions in this half. I don't think they've ever really tried to rush the site or just try to line up a take quickly. RPK, though, watch out. Molly's burning. It's going to bring you down to 44 HP. But still nothing to worry about, is it? It's just yet in this round with G2. moving themselves over here towards middle to line up a little bit more pressure, possibly towards B a bit later on.
This looks like a bit of a mid-take so far, with Smith's posturing towards it himself. Scream doing the smoke down towards connector is going to limit the vision, but G2 yet to commit. They're not really rushing this. Again, these have been very slowly built rounds. These have been quite composed rounds from G2 at this point, and actually they're doing just the same. Clearing out mid, getting some map control. Not going to go for it though. The problem being, however, Stewie is boosted up in A. Now, he has Skadoodle there with him, so he's not just isolated on his own. Nothing's not too far away. This has to be a very concise take from G2. They can't afford to mess this up. Stewie's going anti-flash, waiting to see what they've got coming out, and he's going to spot the legs of one, and it will be Shocks he finds. That's a good scalp to claim, but not going to make more of that, and now Cloud9 completely swept aside. Where was Skadoodle in this?
Unfortunately, nowhere to be seen. He's knocked out very quickly, and again, Cloud9, because the take happens just like that, they're left with no choice but to move away from the action and try to save it. They're almost going to lose nothing there, too. He's jumping up, trying to get a bit of intel as to what's still on the bomb site. He loses about half of his health from that.
Okay. So, Cloud9 going to back out of this and save their guns, but I am seriously waiting for that timeout here for Cloud9, because they haven't had an answer in a while. And at the moment, G2 are playing an incredibly ferocious game. Specifically Shocks and now Scream, who's starting to find a little bit more of himself in this game. And I'm waiting to see if Cloud9 will pull it anytime soon. There it is.
Yep.
Timeout.
We're going to see the pause coming in right now. Tactical from Cloud9. In all honesty, there's something that we haven't seen from them like in this entire half, and that's just pure aggression from the CT side to try and find this info. G2 are not going to give anything away. It's become clear by this point. We've seen it in almost every single round that they wait back, they let the timer tick down, and then they go for an all-in execute. And that's the strat almost every single time. Even when it does split itself up, they're still very quiet about moving into the site, and they wait until they're right up next to somebody from CNM before they actually make any noise. So for Cloud9, if they decided to get a little bit more aggressive, where are those aggressive peaks from Stewie inside of A main? Where's the stuff like that? They're holding back by like truck and whatnot. They're just scared of G2, it seems, and they don't want to move out at the risk of losing some players. But even if you do end up losing a guy or two to the push like that, at the very least, you can get some time for your players to rotate. Because right now, they're just walking into the A-bomb site, taking down both Stewie along with Skadoodle in some cases, nothing depending on who's playing it at the time, and then the other three just have to save because there's nothing left for them to do. They cannot retake because they're so far away, and they just get the intel when their teammates die.
And we saw in the opening rounds actually Cloud9 showing some aggression, and it worked. The initial pistol round was with a pop flash towards A main. Worked out really nicely, and then you saw a little bit of here and there aggression towards, you know, touch of door. We actually saw the B push coming out a couple of times between, I think it was Slemmy and Shroud, if I'm not mistaken. You know, RPK got cornered in towards Sunroom. These were the rounds they actually pressured G2 on. These were the rounds that were a lot closer, but as you said, this passive approach maybe not exactly working here. Now, Cloud9 do have a coach behind them who's going to see everything, have a good idea of maybe how they can approach this better. So hopefully for them, they can readjust their mentality and come back stronger now, because this is looking a little bit one-sided here. And bear in mind, Cloud9, you know, have had issues specifically on one side more than the other. This is not a scoreline you want to see for a competitive game. However, for G2, this is the perfect build back to where they want to be going. But this could be easily met by the fact that, look at this, G2 going for aggression of their own, a 5-man play towards B. Shroud, Skadoodle, and Slemmy better be ready for what's going their way. It's a tidal wave of G2, and it's a spray down from Cloud9. Slemmy, Skadoodle, they lock it out in the end. And well, they just butt heads in that one, don't they?
That works out taking a risk from Cloud9 as well, as they go for a big stack on the B-bomb site, leaving only Stewie to try and defend things towards A, and it works out brilliantly. Look at this spray down. They just peek right out. They're not ready for it at all. They're expecting some resistance to come from Checkers over there, which they do fine, but the other three just absolutely wreck them as G2 are left stunned by what just happened there. So Cloud9, although they've had a bit of a rough patch here with 6 rounds running in a row from G2, they've finally broken it. They're getting back into the match.
And look at this aggression. This is what we wanted to see. This is what we theorized would come out of this timeout. But will G2 expect this? It's an easy thing to expect that after being passive, they might try being aggressive. But Stewie's got the drop on 2. Smith just saw him, but he catches the leg of Scream anyway, but he can't back out cleanly. The molly will let him get away just a touch. Shocks still doesn't want it to be as clean as possible. Sprays in behind Squeaky there, right round the back. Looks like G2 might want to go for a quick response, or at least build towards it. 2 boosted up towards mid. RPK and Body still very passive, expecting maybe B presence. Not the case right now. Cloud9, they've reset G2 a little here. They've set them back. Now they need to close again.
And Slemmy peeking in and out of white box there, waiting for them to go in, maybe to take vent control. Still trying to get the read as to where the site take's coming from. They did some good early damage here. They've held them back for a couple of extra seconds, but now Slemmy's seen it. He knows there's a presence outside. You still can't rely that for either site just as of yet, since they haven't seen any other presence coming into either of the bomb sites. And for G2 themselves, they still haven't made a decision. 40 seconds left on the clock. They are going to need to make one soon here. And it does look like they are shifting the players towards A now, with Body staying in mid to take late highway control.
And again, though, Cloud9 by this point are pretty passive. They have nothing on the A side itself, and then they have Skadoodle down by truck. And actually, until the last couple of rounds, or at least the last round, we haven't seen much stopping power to this from Cloud9. So hopefully for C9, they can build away from this. Good time being built here by the utility more than anything, and Nothing is to be the one waiting. The Molly's come in, he's burning alive, he has to make something. Nothing, don't just stand there! RPK's Molly takes him out, but it's traded out in the end. But look at the time, down to 5 seconds.
At the very least, Skadoodle and Slemmy doing some damage to respond to it and keep things even in a 3-on-3. Now they've got a retake though, and this has been abysmal so far, if they even have had the chances to do it. Scream with the boost up back by Quad, who's waiting for Slemmy to pop back out there on highway. Sees him, but he's got to be careful with only 9 HP. Not connecting the shots like he has been in these past couple of rounds, so he's got to fall back. They're also going to know a second player is there, and Slemmy just walks right up to RPK, takes him down. Shroud finding another pickup. Shocks only got 8 HP to try and clutch this. There's the first pickup. Rounding the corner though, Skadoodle is going to take him down. And we'll see Shroud defusing the bomb to give Cloud9 his 6th round.
First time we've seen a retake pretty much working out on A. Let's be honest here. You said it, they have been abysmal until now. It's looked lackluster. And I've got to feel for Nothing then, you know, you can't really escape in those. You've got to either run at the enemy or just kind of accept your fate. But you kind of hoped he maybe would have achieved more at that point. But it's brought the scoreline back a little closer. That bit of aggression, finally being able to handle those A hits, starts to look like it's bringing the scoreline back to a better point. But because G2 went on such a good tear of things, Shocks being a real bolstering factor to that, they still have the money to buy into these rounds. They've been close enough, they've been getting plants, and they still have all these mollies. And I'm wondering if G2 again will try and switch up the pace, or if they're going to adjust themselves. No, look at who's adjusting it again. It's Cloud9, Shroud9, and Shroud and Slemmy. It could be Shroud9 if he starts performing. Shroud and Slemmy going for the B presence, looking to get some control there, see if they can catch RPK, but a veteran like him, he's been maybe starting to read into this, going, okay, they're getting hungry. All right, I'm just going to back away. I'll let them take a bit, and I'll take it back later if I have to. But, again, it looks like G2 are looking at A.
And it's still at default too. Very slow, very quiet, until it's time to execute. Molly goes back in the NBK spot. No one going to be forced out there. Is Nothing, along with Stewie, are still playing behind the big box on the site. Skadoodle is going to wrap over. They're fighting on this pretty hard, actually, despite just a couple nades getting tossed into the site. They haven't committed yet. RPK and Body, though, moving in, so it's still right to rotate in, but still, that could be useful in later rounds if they've gotten the read of the fact that they moved in very quickly. Nothing and Stewie holding on the site, though, but they've already lost one of them, and Stewie can't find a second frag. Shocks taking down both of them. Skadoodle catching Smith as he tries to push back into the site there, so again, it's a 3-on-3.
Last time the retake worked, but this time Shocks is looking ferocious again, and like a dog unchained, he's going to be looking for these frags. And who's the first to dare step forward to his site at the moment? Already Skadoodle tagged up, forced to back away. Shroud's going to have a chance at it. Oh, great nade comes out, dunks down Shocks. Now we're into 2v3, but time is ticking here, Blue.
Moving into the site now, Body going to be able to hold by the forklift, but only for one kill. Shroud and Skadoodle respond, picking up the final 2 from G2. There is a Molly on the ground, but both have kits, so I believe they'll be able to grab this defuse. Yep, there'll be plenty of time left. And there we go, Cloud9 tying it up. 2 big retakes over here on the A-bomb site. And G2 doing things predictable over and over again. That's becoming their big issue now once allowing Cloud9 to bounce back, is we saw that stack over towards Quad like 3 or 4 times now, so the nade reads into it there. And the unfortunate choice to have Shocks be on the boost when he's already injured bites them big time, because that nade just absolutely destroys him, and because of the fact that it's the boost and they see that, well, you know, the second player's there already.
So, finally Cloud9 stabilized their money. Sadly for them, it is into the final round of the first half pretty much, but the aggression towards A main is unrelenting now. It looks like Cloud9 have found a winning formula for now. Whether or not G2 are happy with that, we're going to see. We're going to find out. It looks like they've responded in some way as to try and find some presence in mid. Screenshots and Body lining up for this. RPK is close to B. This could be a fast B here, but that's a huge issue. Smiths have the bomb. They found it out. This is massive. Stewie going that far forward and may have just ruined G2's chances here.
Stewie's happy with that, though. They're going to counter boost Scream back. There you go. They're going to counter boost Scream back over the edge, but in the meantime, on the B-bomb site, Body's been having some better luck for his team. There's going to be a good nade tossed down, brings RPK just a 36 HP. Slemmy burning a bit there. Wanted to stick around and see if he could catch RPK moving up to the site, but it won't be found just as of yet. Cloud9 postured up for a retake once more as G2 do retrieve that bomb and push over to the B bomb site.
Problem being, G2 have no utility to hold them back anymore. They're down to bare basics, which in these guys, you know, their hands, it can work. But Body has to hold this angle. We've got Stewie and Nothing looking towards mid, Slemmy and Skadoodle in CT. Now, how are they going to approach this? They need to be incredibly on point here. Body's heard these steps, he takes the fight, he wins it. That's Nothing gone. Slemmy, however, fights back. Stewie, though, breaks ahead. That's finally a difference maker. And Slemmy still finding more, but there's Shocks. The absolute raid boss so far for G2 to hold this one together. He finds his first victory, he can find no more. Skadoodle shuts it out with an advantage to Cloud9 on the half. But, problem being, G2 have still looked solid enough, individually stepping up one man far ahead from the others. But Cloud9 have a tough task on their hands going into the second half here, Blue. We're going to find out how this one turns out in just a second, so guys, do stay tuned. Eight, 7 on the half. The urge to reach full potential here is absolutely palpable between these two teams. Cloud9 currently ahead, but by a whisker. So, going to the second half, we've got Cloud9 starting out on that T side. It's been a question point before, but this is where we see things hopefully come together for them if we want a competitive matchup. G2, and should I say Shocks as well, having a big performance here. Already, we're underway.
Into the pistol we go. Cloud9 now on the offense. And to start it off, it's their slow default. We've come to know from them quite a bit here on this cache map. The biggest issue for them in that last half was their inability to adapt after seeing the same thing over and over again from G2. Finally, the pause lets them do it, but if they end up finding themselves in a rut once more in the second half, there won't be a pause to try and fix that. We'll start the action now, though, with Nothing working his way over here towards Boost. Scream around the corner, but everything's quiet for now while they wait for the time to get a bit lower.
Slemmy, the man with the smoke, looking like it may be just an A hit coming out of this with possibly a late mid-split up highway. Slemmy's going to smoke out towards Truck. This should be the indicator, but actually no one following it back. So Shocks is going to be left there scratching his head going, guys? Now Slemmy's got the flashes. This should be the gateway entrance. Now Shocks flashed, he has to back off the angle. Smith to allow Cloud9 out, but well, to their own death so far. Screams for Shroud off. Shocks a little pinned in here, but allowed to operate, and that's worrying. Cloud9 have to deal with him, and now they turn around and it's too late. Shox, the absolute railgun, comes in again with the meat in this real battle here, as Scream as well finds 2, and now Nothing's a little late to the party and about to be pushed.
Creeping his way back in, it's Scream that punishes it. 2Gamers is back indeed. Scream and Shox, the only ones that are chiming in there. 3 and 2 kills on the pistol. Now they're back, they've tied it up, and they're looking good to take the lead as we head into the second half.
I'm wondering if we're going to see the classic aggression from Shox here. Normally actually picks up the MP9 himself, but not the case here. Going for the UMP, he likes to push A main, likes to push up mid, super close, go for this very attentive style almost, but not going to be the case this time. Going to just sway himself over towards Highway and leave the others to do the damage. And a very SMG-heavy purchase here from G2.
Moving out again, the split from Cloud9. It looks a lot like G2 splits if you look at it from the minimap. And kind of try to formulate things together here. Just waiting it back, letting the time tick down a little bit. The investment coming in, but they need to make sure the execution is flawless here, especially considering G2 are going to be armed and dangerous, much more so than they are on the bomb site.
I'm really curious what Nothing's smoke is actually at the moment. He's going to be putting one down as well. These are all... This is a full A hit, but it's a really well-constructed one. Nothing's actually is from B and it goes towards quad, so he's the one set that into play. So it's really defined the site incredibly close by, but with only one Tech 9, these P250s will be the ones to have to do the work. But bear in mind, those MP9s are no slouches at this, and they've actually got a plant on short. This is cheeky as you like. Skadoodle going to get that down, but that's probably all they can hope for here, assuming the G2 work this one back in together. Everyone's a little tanked up, barring Shroud, and Shroud is going to have to get rowdy again, but he's only found Smith so far, and everyone's sitting pretty. Should make this a clean...
Oh,
hello. Put the knife away, Skadoodle. They already did well enough then. So, a plant and a kill. Not too bad there for Cloud9.
RPK turns around just in time, as that was almost a backstab more than likely. It has spelled instant death for him, but he keeps him alive. And despite the fact that Cloud9 find a plant, I don't really know you can call that round a success, considering it was a large investment. If those were P250s and just a couple smokes here and there, and they tried to overwhelm the site, then yeah, that's great. But they invested a lot more than that and really did not pick up all that much.
Their money's still pretty trash, let's be honest. And going back in on the P250s here, and then pretty much the same smokes, it looks like. Not the same lineups, however, and still retaining the SMGs here on the other side. You've got to be keeping your eyes on Smiths and Shox, seeing if they're the ones to go and try and instigate anything. Try and find a way to pad it out. Smiths will be desperate for this, and it looks like maybe the double smokes in mid, the crisscross to try and isolate anyone who's pushed up closer, or maybe insinuate there's a mid to B split coming their way. Not going to be the case at all. It's all a bit of a ruse here. Shroud's the only one to go through it. It's actually G2 positioning Smiths up on the boost, so another big factor here. And Smith hasn't got to show his hand just yet. He might want to help out Shox soon enough, because actually there's a bit of trouble coming his way, but there we go. Smith finally gets into the fight, but actually Stewie's still alive and kicking and got himself into a better position. Bomb not so likely to go down, though, as soon as G2 kind of creep forward.
The smoke coming out, they respected them to a certain degree, but look, never mind on that. Scream denies it very quickly. And the last one that's alive, Stewie, he'll be overwhelmed. We'll see RPK rounding the corner there. G2 hold the lead strong going into the second half now, but this is where things get more interesting because, of course, Cloud9 get the guns in hand. But it's also a test for them, because like I mentioned at the beginning of the game, Cloud9 struggled quite a bit on this T side.
It's a massive test for them, even mentally, because let's be honest here. If we notice it, if the people at home notice it, I'm sure Cloud9 notice it more than anyone that their T sides have been sloppy. So going again, you can see what they're bringing. RPK is going some big aggression through mid. He's going to push himself up towards just underneath that vent. So could be a bit of a redeeming factor here if Cloud9 can find him. But very, very focused towards mid control. Scream, Shox, and RPK all focused in on this.
Skadoodle waiting for the peek at Z, or seeing if he can grab Scream towards the white box there. Definitely the second option would be best, but obviously still has that lurching feeling that there may be a peek from the other direction too. As the out from Smiths as well in his hand. He, however, is positioned on the A-bomb site. And overall, G2 are playing this for a retake on the A site, not really having an active role in defending it. They are sitting here to try and watch out for mid-presence, but Cloud9, I think, are aware of this too. You could see just a moment ago, Shroud trying to check the left corner. And they do have, I think, his RPK position sitting around here. And they'll be waiting for a peek. Cloud9 are a bit hesitant and do call it off for now.
We'll see what they go for. Nothing was positioned for those A smokes again, but he's actually backing off from that. Considering they already had Shroud by Squeaky, I wouldn't be surprised if they just try and make a quick hit towards A, assuming they can take the site, which they should be able to. It's a very passive hold from G2. Smith's the only one close enough by. It looks like a very quick A hit's about to come out, and yeah, here we go. Running comes in, they're going to hear the steps. Smith's going to put down the molly, but just gets spammed out. He needs to be very careful here because up and away, there goes Stewie, going to be peeking over the smoke, and now 4 players remain for G2 on the retake. Scream just going to go bowling in here. Look at that, barreling forward, finding Stewie, evening the score, but the bomb's planted.
And Scream also trying to find his way past it too, but it's too risky right now. He needs to fall away and give his teammates a little bit more room to work. Shox tries to start the flank, but that's going to fail. Skadoodle just barely holds on there with only 10 HP. The molly actually in a great spot, forcing nothing back out of the open. Scream takes him down, Body finding another one. It's falling apart from Cloud9 in the post plant here. Shroud inside it. Squeaky's going to go down, and with Slemmy being eliminated, G2 pull off the retake, and now go 8-11.
Bit of an issue now for Cloud9 starting to appear. A bit of a dark cloud above their head as G2 do start to pull ahead, and that's a worrying one to win. When they start picking up those gun rounds, you've got to get a little bit cautious. G2, if they start feeling warmed up in this, and again, looking at that scoreboard, just hit tab. Look at that. 23-13 already. It's hard to not go on about a player like this when he's having this performance in a match of this caliber. It's highly impressive, but yet, I think we'll be seeing what is probably going to be a bit of a talk here between the Cloud9 guys, as well as utilizing as much as they can here just to have a, you know, play into this round. They bought into it a little bit. You know, they have the Tech 9s, they have mollies, they have smokes. But these need to be discussion times for them as to how they want to approach this now.
So it'll be slow play indeed from Cloud9 to use this as a discussion point. Since they've already used that pause. I mentioned this before too, that if they start off rough, they can't really take a moment out to try and rethink their T-side work. In all honesty, it may work out a bit better for them if they're kind of flatlining themselves strategically about how they're approaching things, which is a common issue for Cloud9 on this T-side, and then it's very straightforward. It's very easy for the CTs to read. And most of the time when they run into strats, well, they would use that pause to try and come up with some new ideas. More orthodox ones to try and catch their opponents off guard, but there's not going to be any time for that here, so these eco rounds are going to be the next best thing.
Here we go. I actually love these sort of plays, but G2 should be aware of how to deal with this. They have something similar in the past, but RPK, hello, do you know you have company there right next to you? He's going to find out pretty soon, but it doesn't matter. Body's coming around to support very well. Scream quick on the trigger too. Going to get himself over towards the site as fast as he can, and Stewie has to be an absolute beast if he wants to get back in it. 1v3, no utility, no bomb, 36 seconds, and well, a very on-point G2 at the moment.
The lack of a bomb's a kicker here, because if he leaves the platform, he knows he's not safe. He knows someone could push in CT main, and he's getting shot in the back. So he's got to wait for the perfect timing on this one to make sure he is safe to go in and retrieve that. And he can't make a single sound on the way over here, too. Always trying to check every single position, firing off some shots to reveal his presence, but now he's been given away. Shox decided to peek this at a perfect time. One pickup from Stewie, though, when he tries moving forward, but he's not aware of Scream back towards T-main, and that is going to spell his doom.
You've got to say it, G2 are starting to nullify that pressure that was on them before, starting to really pretty much exhaust that as they're grinding these rounds out, crushing any hope the Cloud9 might have started to build after that first half of actually very impressive play. Now, not so much so. Now they have to string together. This is another big shot at it, though. They are back on the buy. They have Skadoodle on the orb. This is where they should be able to make their fight, but so far G2 have been kind of extinguishing that as they go.
And it'll be aggression from Shox now into A main. Currently nobody realizing he's in there, and with him taking a position in the locker room too, they also have Smiths with the op position. This is what, you know, Stewie 2K for doing here with the secondary op on this side, at least from some of the matches yesterday and in past tournaments, but he's going to be positioning safely there for now. And his other teammate who pushed in towards lockers gives it up a bit, since there's no early push from C9 to take position there.
1 minute and 17 left in this round, and Cloud9 need to be very careful where they step here. You've got Body pushed up. You've got Smiths in a forward position. Shox has returned towards mid, so again, resetting the pace here. You can see a couple of smokes being put down here or there, but no real intention towards the site just yet. As Cloud9 do start to build themselves up towards an A, you're going to see a couple of smokes possibly being lined up around the back. Slemmy going to be molling over towards the vent, actually, tell the light. And again, Cloud9 cautiously looking into this round with some real anticipation as to what they can achieve. Again, you've got to say, though, the utility has been worked down from G2. They are down to mollies, one smoke, a couple of flashes, and now Smith's position's been given up. He actually sticks out there pretty long, and there you go. There's the quick trigger grab from Cloud9. They want to get into this, but there's still Shox. 3 back-to-back for him, just spraying in. Cloud9 are being disassembled one by one man.
Scream moving back in there. He is going to be shut down by Slemmy. But Shox now is still alive, still well, peeking out, and oh my goodness, that spray transfer shuts out Slemmy, along with Skadoodle has started off. G2, there's no stopping them now as they continue to pull ahead so many rounds past Cloud9 at this point. Cloud9 forcing into this round. AK's coming up onto the board. Armor sitting behind a lot of the buys. You're not going to be seeing that up going on to Skadoodle. And I believe he's going to buy up a Tech 9 in order to save a little bit of extra cash. But beyond that, they're emptying out the bank accounts to try and keep themselves in this game. And they may just run themselves empty after this one.
And one absolute wow.
All right.
What a way to start it off. That boost better been worth it, Slemmy. You've literally died being a stepping stool, but Stewie's going to at least find Scream, so that evens out somewhat. But look at the damage. Stewie's 5 HP, Skadoodle's 4. This was the big investment round, and now Shox has easier targets in case he needed easier targets. But Stewie's still showing he's got some backbone here. He's not going to go down without some sort of fight, and Cloud9 have bullied, broken, and beaten their way back into having some form of mid-control.
You can see Shox kind of second-guessing that look over there to Whitebox. Didn't know if we saw a ghost or if it was Stewie, but Stewie is there. And he will take him down, bringing this back into a 5-on-3, which theoretically gives Cloud9 the advantage, but of course, Stewie and Skadoodle, they are so low that if they are caught even at the slightest off angle, they will be immediately dead.
All right, Smith's going on the long flank. He is finding out a great deal of information. He can take a peek towards A, sees nothing. Instantly RPK responds. You can see the trickle of information between G2. They know this is going to be a B hit, or more than likely. So RPK can now support body in the best way possible. But Stewie can still be a real pain here. 2 players on the flank means they're going to basically flank around each other. Both going to go all the way through. How much info can they find here? They can see one bit of smoke and a bit. Oh, the player model then did stick out a little too far, but G2 is still making a fight on the side itself. And what has happened here? Cloud9, 1 by 1 going in and 1 by 1 being absolutely shredded again by G2. And these guys are just playing out of their mind. This is a beautiful bit of CS we're seeing here from G2. They want to be in the major. It's as simple as that. They turned up, they looked so hungry in this game, and they have been dragged kicking and screaming to 14 rounds now.
The last round ends in a 1v1, very close, but the issue is that now, with Cloud9 forcing up previously, they're left with basically no cash to force up here, but they've got to go for it. They can't try to battle back from 15 rounds just by going for an eco this time, so it's still going to be 4 rifles into the picture. Slemmy will use a CZ, but as they creep closer and closer here, this one, when it comes down to just pure entry power, this needs to start well, and there can't be any trades. That's what's been consistently happening. They move in, they might find 1 or 2 pickups, but the issue is that G2 find maybe 3 or 4 in kind, and it just leaves it in such an unequal situation for Cloud9 to do anything about it. And most of the time, too, Cloud9 aren't really even getting into the site. They're not getting good control. 3 of the past rounds, they haven't even managed to find a plant. So this needs to be straight from the get-go, as otherwise G2 are going to punish it too heavily.
And they would be walking right into the lion's den if they go towards A. And Shox is prowling for this one. Just waiting by forklift. Shroud, would you dare go into that? Smiths already has the high ground up by boost. You better be absolutely A1 and vicious, Cloud9, if you want a chance of getting this round from these boys. There's the first bit of signal that this may be coming their way. Shox, how will you position yourself for this? You've got 4 players through A main, 1 through Squeaky. You've got 2 teammates with you. Just going to take his time. Gives nothing away, shows position, and now Cloud9 wants to respond.
Shox is going to be blind as about as they move in. Smiths, too, can't be spotted. And you think Shox is able to escape into that smoke, and Scream finds 2 pickups. But as he moves forward, Shox here striking things down. Everything in the hands of Skadoodle. It started off well, but there were those trades again, and it came from Shox, holding the hero possession at forklift. G2 now on match point, major point for them. They close it out here, and they're going forward, and for the first time, I think in the organization's history, Cloud9 will not be at the major.
Devastating loss for Cloud9 if it comes down this way. This is where it happens. This is where it's do or die, ladies and gents. Cloud9 on 8, G2 on 15, and what a absolute tear in performance from Shox. This guy has been out of this world, and he wants more. He wants to go right into it. Look at it. He's got another chance, and why not take it? Slemmy, he almost lined up for him, but it's Scream to find 2 and start hammering those nails into the coffin of Cloud9 as G2 now takes steps towards getting themselves in that major body. Not able to do it. Nothing. Still fighting the good fight for Cloud9, but RPK, the tank, still waiting ever so patiently. And Shox again, look at him maneuvering throughout this map. Desperate to get into this one again. Shroud and nothing. You better come up with the goods, because there's Shox. He finds one. He goes for another. And of course, it's Shox to end it. What a poetic way to close down the map. 16-8, and it will be G2 going to the major. And sadly for Cloud9, they're going home.
It was a scrappy ride for G2 though, but an amazing recovery at the end, coming out specifically from Shox. A huge performance from him, 34 and 15 to end it. And I'd be very interested to see stats like ADR and whatnot, as that had to be off the charts for him. throughout the course of that match. Cloud9, though, unfortunately, the players that needed to show up weren't really present there. We didn't see the strength from nothing. We didn't see Scoodoodle getting the op in hand. We didn't see anything really from Shroud. It was just Stewie bringing that performance. Granted, again, credit to him where credit is due that he still brings this kind of impact here as one of the newest fraggers for this team. But now the real question is, what is happening to the other three?
A lot of questions will remain for both of these teams now going forward. But all we know is that G2 have secured their place in making history for themselves here now. Shox, the man in the middle, is an absolutely god-tier player, and he just delivered in one of the biggest games that they've had in a little bit of a while here. So for them, a fantastic moment, something they can look back on and be proud of in this game. It's been, as you said, a rocky road though, not the cleanest of routes through for G2. But when you have firepower like that, you can depend upon players to step up when it matters, and that is exactly when it mattered. However, as said for Cloud9, a bit of a shame to see them going out here and not being part of that major, but it's the way the cookie crumbles. If you can't do it when it matters, you only sadly have yourself to blame. And I think we're almost ready to get down to that stage. I can't wait to see what Shox has to say about this performance, because he has to be pleased about this.
Shox, I just looked up real quickly, and while HLTV hasn't completed the entire stat just yet, according to the live score, Shox had a 2.29 rating in that match, which for going against Cloud9, that is, and that's crazy to
What's
see
the
that rating
closest
that
to
high.
it, just out of curiosity to give it some
It's
context?
Scream at 1.29.
Wow. Okay, guys, so that's what sort of impact Shox had. I think that's enough from us theorizing about how good that was for him. Let's hear from the man himself down the stage with Mitch.
I'm already feeling better at CS just standing next to the man here, of course. Shox has led G2 to the major. I mean, you probably get asked this quite often as well, but that was an incredible performance from you. Firstly, how do you do it? And secondly, how are you generally feeling about your performance over the tournament, and especially finishing off with that game?
Well, I don't know, at this event I tried something like we are just doing some aim map and stuff before the games, and I love it a lot, so I don't know, it gave me maybe confidence before in the warm-up, and then, yeah, in the game, if the things like start to go well, then everything can happen.
And it did. Oh, well, I mean, we saw those last couple of rounds as well. I think 34 kills was the final total, more than 2 rating, which is ridiculous. But statistics aside, let's talk about that game itself as well. We see Cloud9, and we kind of know them for a little bit of a slower T side. They take their time. I mean, if you watch Scoodoodle, he watched the same point for like 20 seconds before he sort of moves on. You know, you obviously dealt with that quite well, but we'd love to know how you dealt with it tactically as well, and how you sort of managed to deal with not quite knowing where Cloud9 were always going to come from in those T side rounds.
The thing is, like, we knew they had a really game based on their tactics and slow things, you know. So we just delay some stuff and just pick the right information at the right timing. And so that's why a lot of time we knew where they were coming.
Yeah, it's funny, a couple times we did see a few of you peek ahead a little bit more aggressively, and it didn't matter how long Cloud9 took, because you already know where they were going to be coming from. And we could see that unraveled them on a few occasions. Shox, it has been a bumpy ride for you guys at this tournament as well. You came in as honestly the hot favourite. Everyone would be saying that as well. And like, I spoke to Adil earlier on, I spoke to Scream, sorry, and he sort of said, you know, yeah, we're feeling pretty good, feeling confident, hitting the shots and all that kind of stuff. But it didn't end up being so simple for you guys as well. Tell us a little bit about your team's journey throughout this tournament, because I'm sure there have been plenty of difficult discussions you've had to have over the last couple of days, and just to get yourself back in the driver's seat.
The thing is, we are still a young team, and directly with body and stuff, we almost had a lot of wins, you know. And sometimes it's harder to just upgrade yourself or as a team when you win than when you lost. So by losing by new stuff, because we are not used to it, we had a lot of talk, and the thing is, we can see some mistakes we didn't see before because we were winning, and now we can see them, so we can fix them. But still, we just came back from E-League and stuff. We had only like 1 or 2 days of practice, so basically, like, I think we just need to have the time to practice. But with all the events coming up, sometimes it's hard because it's best of 1, and if you don't go straight in the game, we lost a lot of pistol round on this event. A lot of first gun run, and when you do this, then of course they already have like maybe 8 or 10 rounds, so the best of 1 is pretty hard in this kind of case.
So you kind of lost just enough to stay in the tournament, but also to learn plenty to make you good enough when it came to the time. Hey, look, Shox, I'll end it here. Thank you so much for joining us. Fantastic performance for you. Go and celebrate with your team, and we'll see you, of course, at the Major in Cologne. We have a full Major, ladies and gentlemen. G2 are the final team to round out all the teams that we're going to be seeing in Cologne. It has been an incredible 4 days, and we have seen these teams tested in a way that they never have before under other formats. Incredible play. Before we move on to the pleasantries, let us get back to business with this map in general. Alex, over to you.
Well, we outlined it beforehand, Mitch. We said if Shox does do what Shox does best, it was going to go the way of G2. I had, of course, that predictions from Metis and Nato, and it's exactly what happened. G2 final spot at the Major, and all 16 teams are locked in. Now, just before you leave us, I can see you're already looking towards that X. We're doing the Major draw live in just a moment, so do stick around. We're going to do this post-match nice and snappy, and then we're going to be drawing the Major groups. It's going to be very exciting, and there's going to be some ball maneuvering. Oh, I tried to avoid fondling. There will be some ball fondling live on stream. There you go. So you've got that to look forward to. But let's talk a little bit about Cash.
Okay.
It's kind of insane, and I know it's a bad taste to start on the second half, but that's where I want to start, just because you saw in the green room, I was getting rather frustrated by this persistent throwing your bodies into Shox and Scream on the A site. Cloud9 again faltering on their attack.
But also, it was Shox that was the catalyst in the first half as well, as they had a slow start. Cloud9 started off well, but it was all Shox once again with a 3 or 4K and a hit towards a bomb side that really catalysted G2's round on the T side. But just like you said there, Alex, I mean, it was like a meat grinder going on that A bomb side. Like, the only time that Cloud9 decides to go into B is when they have this half take 9 by going on. So, a little bit questionable. I mean, I wanted to maybe see a little bit more play through middle. I wanted to see a little bit more maybe fakes, as they have a lot of nice smokes they can dispose of. So, you know, it's one of those things that a lot of teams actually have, that if you have hot players such as Shox and Scream playing a bomb side, you might actually want to just avoid them.
It's true, but at the same time, I guess if Cloud9 have a lot of faith and they keep the faith in their strats, and another thing as well, that Shoxy wasn't just getting frags, he was getting clutches, he was getting aces. If you put him in a 1vx situation, you're almost expecting him to clutch it. So maybe the idea is to get rid of him off the start of the round and then try and close it out. I'm trying to think of reasons as to why, because alongside you, I don't really understand.
And
stubbornness, maybe.
The problem with that theory as well is we saw a couple of examples of it where Cloud9 did get that pick on Shox. Scream was just like, oh, I guess it's my turn then. I guess I'll get 2 or 3 kills. I mean, it was relentless, really tough for Cloud9. And there's, of course, a lot of lessons learned for the North American side. They're now going to be reflecting. They are not going to be present at the Major. And so it's going to be weird to see a Cloud9-less Major, but also it's going to be an opportunity for them to reflect and actually grow as a team. They've already said, you know, they've actually ripped a whole lot away and are starting to build back up with Slemmy. Another name I'd just like to quickly make sure we address, because he was picking up frags, and big ones at that.
Yeah, I think he's gradually he started off pretty slow the first games I saw him play with Cloud9, but he's actually gradually been improving his fragging as well, so obviously that's going to help him going further.
Certainly is G2 picking up that slot. Let's not go too in-depth, because I know what everyone's looking forward to now. It is going to be that group draw. We're going to go ahead and find the balls that we will soon be fondling. Just in just a moment's time, we'll be back in about 2 or so minutes' time so we can start this group draw. And we may even introduce you to Delayham himself, the admin that you've heard so much about.